What if I told you that NASA, our National Aeronautics and Space Administration, was formed with the help of a former Nazi rocket scientist? And did you know that that same former rocket scientist was part of the team who helped put the first man, an American man, on the moon too? So today I want to talk to you about Wernher von Braun's life and how his dreams blinded himself from reality. Dr. Wernher von Braun was born in 1912 to a low aristocratic family in Prussia, and he grew up with a relatively conservative background that later influenced how and where he worked with in the future. But at a young age, he developed a strong interest towards science and technology that was virtually unheard of in the von Braun family name. You see, his father, grandfather, and great-grandfather all served as civil servants who held high offices in the Prussian land, and nobody in his immediate family served as a scientist, mathematician, or any of those related fields. Yet, it was surprisingly his mother, with her extensive knowledge in science, actually embraced von Braun's scientific interest and began homeschooling him in the first place. And as Michael Neufeld notes in his 2008 biography about Wernher von Braun, he states that von Braun considered his mother to be the most ideal tutor and was actually the person who motivated him to pursue it in the first place. And so with this newfound knowledge and passion, he developed a strong obsession of build and tinker, and he carried on with that through his education in his primary school, secondary school, university, and even postgraduate school too. And it's clear that he had this immense talent in rocket science and engineering, and it was quickly noticed by the rising Nazi party at the time, and they recruited him to work under their missile program too. And so while working for the Nazis, his most infamous project was building the V-2 rocket. And what makes this rocket the most instrumental or most significant during the time was that it was the first intercontinental ballistic missile to ever be built. And this meant that this was the world's first object that can actually go into space, but also return to Earth's atmosphere too. And as Mark Betancourt writes in his 2017 article, published in the Air and Space magazine, he writes that this was a hallmark of von Braun's work during his tenureship with the regime because it had lasting consequences that last even to this day. But as the World War II came to a close and the Germans surrendered to the Allied forces, Wernher von Braun and his team of 500-plus scientists working at the German missile facility were captured by the Americans, and they were immediately transferred to the American Army's emerging rocketry program in Huntsville, Alabama, which was eventually formed into the formation of NASA as we know it today. And so working for the United States, they used this expertise and experience in building missiles for the Germans, and they translated it and promoted him to become the chief architect of the Apollo space program that worked to fulfill President John F. Kennedy's mission that America be the forefront and leader of technological prowess and aerospace engineering altogether. And so his most famous project in his time working with the U.S., he worked on the boosters for the Saturn V, which is the same rocket that transported Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin to the moon. And so this captured the attention of Americans and the world over as it was finally realized that humans could indeed go into space. But despite his capturing of the space fervor of the time, his clear successes during his career is undoubtedly questionable. You see, as Neufeld puts in his book and biography, he writes that von Braun's life is a textbook example of the Faustian bargain, or the willingness to sacrifice anything to satisfy a limitless desire for knowledge and power, and essentially, to simply put, he had this deal with the devil. As Amy Sherry-Tito argues in her 2013 article published in Al Jazeera, she writes that and argues that whatever celebrity von Braun achieved in America, it couldn't erase his Nazi past. Furthermore, in an interview conducted by Dan Tedeschi and published in the Air and Space magazine, she interviewed von Braun's biographer, Michael Neufeld, and he said that von Braun said, "I didn't know about the Holocaust, and I eventually came to the realization that Hitler was an evil person." So he certainly distanced himself from that, but there's no great sense of guilt there. You see, he thought that it wasn't his problem and his responsibility, and the use of forced concentration camp labor to build the V-2 rocket wasn't his idea. And so without accepting that, he thought that it was always something done by the Nazis, and he allegedly didn't have anything to do with it. But at the same time, in another piece written by Michael Neufeld and published in 2017 by the PBS, von Braun in American Lens came to be known for three of his main accomplishments in the NASA program. The first being that he made spaceflight a reality to the public. The second, that he led a team of engineers that launched the first American satellite in 1958. Third, and finally, he was in charge of managing the development of a gigantic launch vehicle that sent humans to the moon on a Saturn V rocket. Now, you might be wondering why I'm talking about Wernher von Braun's life and why his legacy remains relevant to us today. You see, Veterans Day is coming up on Monday, November 11th, and it's a time where we're celebrating the legacies and sacrifices and contributions that people fought to preserve our freedoms and rights that we enjoy today. But it's also a great opportunity for us to evaluate the legacies of people that we study throughout American history. And especially in Wernher von Braun's life, he had this complicated legacy altogether. You see, in the top photo, you can see von Braun in the second row, standing in the same photo with Hitler. And on the bottom photo, you can see him talking to President John F. Kennedy pretty intimately, too. So, von Braun had this restless attention to pursue what he loved, but ultimately it left him with a complicated legacy, sleepwalking into the Faustian shadow. So he had this disregard of responsibility, and he was ignorant to the surrounding environment, but he's also considered this national hero in Americans' eyes, the scientific community, and the world over, for being the father of modern inner space travel, too. And so that leads us to the question, how do we want to remember him? Is he the founder of NASA and what he's called to be the father of inner space travel? Or is he a war criminal from World War II? Only we can decide on how we see how he's perceived, and how history remembers him altogether. Thank you.